My husband kissed me goodbye, and I never imagined that was the last normal moment we'd share. By the time the sun set, my world had shattered. We'd been married for 17 years. Leonid and I weren't perfect, but we had what looked like a solid life, a mortgage on a new apartment, two sons growing up too fast, and routines that made the chaos of life feel manageable. I'm Larissa, and until that week, I believed I was living in a bubble of normalcy. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And I was proud of it. Mornings were always rushed. That Monday wasn't any different. Leonid kissed me on the cheek, mumbled something about being late, and disappeared through the door. I yelled at him to call me later. He never did. I didn't realize then, but that was the last day I would see my husband as the man I thought I knew. At work, I had a pounding headache and couldn't shake the nausea. I assumed it was stress, maybe the pressure of our growing debts or the tension I'd been feeling lately between me and my best friend, Valentina. We worked in the same office, and just days earlier, she'd received the promotion I had been silently hoping for. She said it was nothing personal, that she just needed the raise more. I pretended to be happy for her. I even smiled. But something inside me cracked. That day, the world spun and I collapsed at my desk. Valentina, concerned, helped me to a chair and insisted on calling a doctor. I brushed it off, embarrassed, but the doctor came anyway. After a quick exam and a lot of questions, he stared at me with a strange look. "You're pregnant," he said. I laughed. "That's impossible. I have 2 kids already. I'm 39. He didn't flinch. "You're in your 24th week. Maybe further." Everything inside me stopped. I hadn't noticed. No morning sickness. No bump, not really. Just stress and tiredness. I was in disbelief. I called Leonid. He was quiet when I told him, but not angry. Just quiet. I could tell his mind was racing. That night, I sat down with our sons. Yurko, 16, was shocked but smiled. "Guess I'm gonna be a big brother again," he said. Vovka, only 10, jumped up and asked if he could help pick baby clothes. Leonid stood near the door, nodding. That was all. No excitement. No joy. I knew then something was wrong. He hadn't touched me in weeks. Maybe months. Over the next few days, I noticed his mood change. He became distant. Cold. He came home late, always with an excuse. I told myself it was the stress of the mortgage, the surprise pregnancy, the long hours. But I was lying to myself. Then Sunday came, the day we had promised to spend as a family. The boys were excited. We had planned a small celebration. Nothing fancy, just pizza and movies. That morning, Leonid put on a dress shirt and said he had a meeting. "Today?" I asked. "It's Sunday. I'll be back soon." "You'll still be asleep," he replied, smiling oddly. Then he left. He never came home that night. I tried to reach him. Dozens of calls. No answer. The boys asked where he was. I told them he was busy, but inside, I was spiraling. Something was deeply wrong. At midnight, I called Valentina. "He's still not home," I said. My voice trembled. There was a pause. "Maybe he's with someone," she said softly. "What?" "Larissa, you've been so trusting. But Leonid's been acting strange for months." I didn't want to believe her. I hung up, furious at her for even suggesting such a thing. I barely slept that night. In the morning, Yurko found him. He was passed out drunk on a park bench near our building. My son had to carry his father home. I'd never seen Leonid drunk, not once. He was always controlled, disciplined. But there he was, reeking of vodka, stumbling into our apartment. I tried asking him what happened, but he passed out on the bed in his clothes. And then, just before dawn, the doorbell rang. It was the police. "Is this the residence of Leonid Kravtsov?" one of them asked. "Yes," I whispered. "Your husband has been identified as a suspect in a drunken brawl. A man died from his injuries. We need to bring him in for questioning." I froze. Yurko stepped forward. "Don't touch my dad," he shouted. But they moved past him. I watched them drag my husband out of our apartment in handcuffs. I could barely breathe. I sat in the kitchen, staring at nothing, my hands wrapped protectively around my unborn child. Leonid had been my rock, my partner. I never thought I'd see him arrested for murder. And the worst part? I didn't know whether to believe he was innocent, or if I had ever truly known the man I married. The morning after the arrest, the apartment felt hollow, quiet in a way that made me feel like I was falling through space. Yurko sat silently at the kitchen table, staring at the same spot on the wall. Vovka didn't even ask questions. Maybe he was too young to fully grasp what was happening. Or maybe the silence scared him more than the truth ever could. I tried calling Leonid's phone. No answer. Of course not, he was in custody. I didn't even know where. I paced the kitchen, glancing every few seconds at the clock, then back at the door, hoping this was all some horrible mistake that would undo itself. That's when Valentina showed up. She let herself in, as if she still lived there. Her coat was buttoned up to her neck, and her eyes started around the apartment like she was taking inventory. I wanted to scream at her, tell her to get out, but I didn't. I needed anyone, who could help me make sense of this mess. I heard, she said, like she'd just read about it in the newspaper. Did you? I replied coldly. Larissa, I'm here for you. I know how scared you must be. She made me tea, walked through our apartment like it was hers, then sat across from me and said something that made my blood turn to ice. I spoke to someone at the station, she said. They're charging him with manslaughter. I blinked. No, it's not possible. He's not a killer. There were witnesses. My stomach dropped. You seem to know a lot. She didn't flinch. I asked around. I care. I should have known. Her hands trembled slightly when she passed me the tea. She wasn't just informed. She was involved somehow. I felt it in my bones. I spent the next few days in a haze. I could barely eat. The baby kicked for the first time while I sat alone on the couch, and instead of joy, I felt dread. How was I going to raise 3 children now alone? With no job, a mountain of debt, and a husband in jail? The school called. Yurko had skipped a class. When I asked him why, he only said, "What's the point of history class when my whole life is falling apart?" And he wasn't wrong. I tried to visit Leonid at the station, but they refused me. I wasn't allowed to see him yet. It's under investigation, they told me. Too soon. Valentina offered to go. She said she had connections. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, one night, Yurko came home late. He looked furious. I went to the station, he said. They wouldn't let me see him either. But I saw something. Valia was there. She called him her husband. I froze. What? She signed the visitor sheet. Said she was his wife. I couldn't breathe. I heard her say, "I'll take care of everything, my love." She kissed him, Mom, on the mouth. It felt like someone had ripped my heart out through my throat. She's lying, I said automatically. She's just meddling. Is she? He snapped. Are you that blind? That night, I sat on the floor in the hallway with my back against the wall, staring at the door. I tried to remember the last time Leonid had looked at me the way he used to. I couldn't. But I could remember how Valentina always looked at him too closely, with too much interest. Suddenly, everything made sense. The stolen promotion. The friendly visits. The casual way she stepped into our home. The way she knew things I hadn't even told my mother. And now this. She had taken my husband. Or maybe he had given himself away. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. It was a jolt, a reminder. This wasn't just about me. I had a life inside me, 2 sons who needed their mother and no room for breakdowns. The next morning, I called the doctor. I needed to know if the pregnancy was still healthy, if the stress was hurting the baby. He insisted I come in for a full exam. Valentina offered to drive me. I refused. She came anyway. Get out, I said when she knocked on the door. You're not welcome here. She pushed her way in. Don't be dramatic. I'm here to help. Help. I hissed. Like you helped yourself to my husband? Her face didn't even twitch. Don't blame me for your broken marriage. If you'd paid more attention. I slapped her. Hard. The sound echoed through the apartment. She staggered back, but didn't fight. You'll thank me one day, she said, her voice like venom. Leonid was never yours, not really. That night, I cried like I hadn't in years. Deep, broken sobs into my pillow while Yurko stood outside my door, listening. In the darkness, I made a decision. I would find out the truth. All of it. And when I did, I'd make sure the people who destroyed my life would never be able to ruin another. I didn't sleep much after that. Sleep felt like a luxury, one I couldn't afford. My world had cracked open, and something dark had begun to crawl through. The next morning, I sent the kids to school with extra food and a smile I stitched onto my face like a patch on a torn sweater. As soon as they left, I started digging. I found Leonid's old laptop in the closet, covered in dust. He'd stopped using it a year ago when his company gave him a new one. I didn't know the password, but I knew him. He wasn't exactly original. I tried his birthday, then mine. On the third attempt, Yurko's name. It unlocked. The moment the screen blinked on, my stomach twisted. The desktop was clean. Too clean. No shortcuts, no files. But the recycle bin had 4 items. I clicked. There they were, photos. Dozens of them. Not of me. Not of our kids. Not of our family. Of Valentina. In restaurants, parks, hotels. There was one of her in our living room. Wearing my robe. My vision blurred. I couldn't look away. In some photos, Leonid's reflection appeared in mirrors or windows. In others, they stood together, smiling like a couple. A real couple. Intimate. Comfortable. Familiar. One of the images was dated over 4 years ago. For years. That meant while I was planning our 15th wedding anniversary, she was already taking him on weekend getaways. I sat on the floor and cried until my throat burned. Later that day, when Yurko came home, he found me still there, the laptop beside me, the images still glowing on the screen. He didn't say anything. He just sat beside me and put his arm around my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know it was this bad." Neither did I. For the first time, I realized that this wasn't a love triangle. It wasn't even a betrayal. It was a takeover. Valentina had been replacing me slowly, methodically. At work, in my home, in my marriage. And I had let her. The next morning, I went to the police station. I told them I was Leonid's wife. I brought my ID, our marriage certificate. I demanded to speak to the officer in charge of his case. They hesitated. Then they asked if I was aware of a second partner. "I am now," I said bitterly. He nodded. "The charges are serious. He's being moved to pretrial detention." There was a fight. A man died. I gripped the chair. Did Leonid kill him? The officer paused. There were multiple participants. But your husband was heavily intoxicated. Witnesses say he instigated it. I couldn't breathe. So he did it? No, he said. But he didn't stop it either. A few days later, Leonid called from the detention center. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity got the better of me. "Larissa," he said. His voice was tired, slow. "I didn't want you to find out like this." I didn't speak. I was drunk. I don't remember how it started. But I swear I didn't mean for anyone to die. "What about Valentina?" He was silent. "You slept with her. You loved her. You told her you'd leave me." More silence. "I'm pregnant," I said. "Did she tell you that?" He gasped. "No." "Larissa, are you?" "Yes. 24 weeks. With your child." He didn't speak for a full minute. "I'm so sorry," he finally said. But sorry was a shallow word when it came from someone who'd burned down the home you built together. When I hung up, something inside me hardened. I didn't cry again that day. Instead, I made a plan. I started documenting everything, every expense Valentina had ever helped with. Every rumor she'd spread at work. Every little manipulation she'd slipped into my life, disguised as friendship. I also called a lawyer. If Leonid was going to go down, so was she. And if he wasn't, then I needed to protect what was left of my life. Meanwhile, the house was a battlefield of whispers. Vovka asked every night if Dad was coming home. Yurko stayed silent, his eyes hollow. He didn't trust Leonid anymore. And I couldn't blame him. One evening, as I was cleaning the hallway closet, I found something behind the coats, a box I didn't recognize. It was taped shut. Inside, baby clothes. New. Tags still on. A receipt. Dated 6 weeks ago. Bought with Leonid's credit card. But here's the thing, there were 2 sets. One blue. One pink. Twins? No. That wasn't it. In the corner of the box was a handwritten card. It read, "To our future. Can't wait to raise our baby together. V." The room spun. It wasn't for me. She was pregnant too. I held the card for a long time. "To our future. Can't wait to raise our baby together. V." My stomach churned. I was nearly 6 months pregnant, heartbroken, barely sleeping, and she was planning a future family with my husband? And he had agreed to it? The next morning, I took the receipt and the note to the lawyer. He skimmed through it, adjusted his glasses, and looked at me. "This could help you," he said. "But only if things go to trial. It shows premeditation." She was planning to build a new life using what's legally still yours, your husband, your child's father, your home. My hands trembled in my lap. "Can we use this to push her out?" I asked. "She's not officially tied to anything yet. But if she's been paying your bills, helping with legal fees, or interfering with your family, there might be a way to expose her influence." I left the office filled with a strange kind of energy, not hope, not relief. It was survival. Later that day, I stopped by the hospital to visit a friend in maternity. As I was walking down the hallway, I saw a familiar face ahead. It was Valentina. Pregnant. Visibly. She was laughing, holding a bouquet of flowers, walking next to a much older man. Not Leonid. They stopped at the reception desk. "I'm here for my prenatal checkup," she said, placing a hand gently over her stomach. Last name, Kovton. Not Kratsova. Not even her own last name. Kovton. The man beside her smiled proudly. "We're expecting twins," he said. "My miracle girls." I stepped back quickly, ducking behind a pillar. My ears rang. My legs wanted to collapse beneath me. She wasn't pregnant by Leonid. Or maybe she'd never been pregnant at all. Maybe the baby clothes in my closet weren't proof of an affair, but bait. A manipulation. What kind of person goes that far to destroy someone? I waited until they disappeared into the hallway, then approached the receptionist and calmly asked, "Excuse me. That woman, Valentina, how far along is she?" The nurse looked at me suspiciously. "I'm sorry, I can't give out personal information." "Right," I said quickly. "Sorry." She just looked familiar. I rushed home and collapsed on the couch. All this time, I thought I was the abandoned wife, the betrayed woman. But what if I was just collateral damage in Valentina's scheme to manipulate two men? That night, Leonid called again. "I need to see you," he said. "I don't think that's a good idea. I have to explain what happened that night. With the fight. With Valentina. Everything. You've had weeks." I wasn't ready. But I am now. "Please, Larissa. I want to tell you the truth." He came the next day, escorted by his lawyer. His case was still under investigation, but he had been released under house arrest. We sat at opposite ends of the kitchen table. "Start talking," I said. "She told me she was pregnant last year," he began, rubbing his face. "Said she was scared. Didn't want to raise a child alone." I didn't speak. I thought, maybe it was time to leave. But when she started talking about moving in, taking over our place, making you disappear from my life, I realized how deep I'd let myself sink. "Then why didn't you end it?" I snapped. "Because I was a coward. And because she blackmailed me." "How?" "She had photos. Of us. And she said if I left her, she'd ruin me. Send them to you, to the kids, to my boss. She knew everything about our finances. She even made me open that second account." "Second account?" I blinked. "What account?" He froze. So there it was. Still more lies. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'll show you everything. I'll sign it over to you." A long silence stretched between us. Then he added something I didn't expect. "She told me that if I didn't leave you, she'd get rid of the baby." "But there is no baby," I said coldly. "She's pregnant now, yes, but not with yours. I saw her at the hospital. With another man." He said he was the father. Leonid's face went pale. "She lied," I said. "And you risked everything for her." I stood up. "You didn't just cheat on me. You endangered our family." "And for what?" "A fantasy." He didn't try to stop me when I walked out. Instead, he stayed seated. Alone. Drowning in the wreckage he helped create. Back home, Yurko and Vavka were sitting on the floor, building something with Legos. They looked up at me with quiet eyes. I smiled at them the way only a mother can when her heart is broken but still beating. The storm hadn't passed. But I knew now that I wasn't its victim. I was the survivor. It started with a photo. A simple envelope in our mailbox, addressed in shaky handwriting. No stamp. No sender. Inside, a single picture. Leonid and Valentina. Together. Not from months ago, no. The timestamp on the back was last week. They stood outside a cafe. Close. His hand on her back. Her head tilted toward him in that too familiar way. So much for it's over. So much for I choose you. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went to the sink, poured myself a glass of water, and stared at the photo again. My sons were in the next room. I could hear them laughing. I couldn't let them see me fall apart. Not again. That evening, I waited until they were asleep. Then I called the lawyer. I need to file for full custody, I said. Of course, he replied. Has Leonid threatened you or the children? No, I said. But he's unstable. Dishonest. He exposed them to danger once. I won't let it happen again. Understood. We'll proceed immediately. I hung up and took a deep breath. Then, the doorbell rang. It was Valentina. She looked worse than I'd ever seen her. No makeup. Hair unwashed. Her coat hung loosely around her as though even it had given up on her posture. You look surprised, she said, pushing her way in. I didn't invite you. No. But I figured you'd want answers. I said nothing. I saw you at the hospital, she said, glancing around. You must have figured it out. You mean that you were never carrying Leonid's child? That you manipulated us both? Oh, I was pregnant, she said bitterly. But not for long. Lost it before I ever told him. And you let him believe. I needed leverage. My jaw clenched. You destroyed a family. She laughed. Don't act so innocent. That man was looking for a way out long before I came along. You just didn't want to see it. You don't get to rewrite my life, Valia. I didn't rewrite it. I revealed it. I walked toward the door. Get out. But she held up a hand. I came to give you this, she said, handing over a flash drive. Security footage from the night of the fight. The one that got him arrested. I stared at her. Why? I asked. Because I'm done playing games. You want him? Fine. Take him. I don't want to be anyone's dirty little secret anymore. She turned and walked out. I stood there for several minutes, gripping the flash drive. I didn't want to plug it in. I didn't want to know more. But I owed it to myself. I opened my laptop and inserted the drive. There were 3 short videos. One showed Leonid stumbling out of a bar. The second showed him arguing with 2 men. The third showed someone else landing the fatal blow. Not Leonid. I covered my mouth with my hand. Tears sprang to my eyes, not out of joy, not out of forgiveness, but out of exhaustion. This entire time, he hadn't killed anyone. But he had lied. He had betrayed me. He had broken everything we built. The next day, I went to the prosecutor's office. I handed over the footage, made a statement, and returned home feeling lighter, but not healed. That night, Leonid showed up at our door. I let him in. He sat down across from me. She told me she gave it to you. She did. She's gone now, he added. Left the city. Probably forever. Good. He looked around the living room. It's strange. Everything's the same, but it's different. I nodded. Because I'm different. He nodded too. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't. I just wanted to say, thank you. For showing them the video. For proving I didn't do it. I did it for the truth. Not for you. Silence filled the room. Then he asked, do you think there's any chance we could? No, I said firmly. There's no us anymore. He nodded slowly. Then stood. I'll go. At the door, he turned one last time. Take care of them. Of yourself. I didn't reply. He walked away, and this time, I didn't look back. Later that week, I sat down with Yurko and Vovka and told them everything. Age-appropriate, of course. But honest. They were quiet. Then Vovka said, can we get a dog now? I laughed. And I cried. And then I said, yes. I think we deserve one. I stared at the man I once called my husband, feeling as if I didn't know him at all anymore. His eyes, once warm and full of love, now looked desperate, hollow, filled with a plea I wasn't ready to answer. "You're asking for forgiveness now?" I asked, my voice trembling but firm. "After all the lies? After Valentina? After the child we lost?" Leonid stepped forward slowly. "Larissa, I didn't know how much I would lose. I didn't realize until it was too late. I've made mistakes, yes, terrible ones. But I never stopped loving you. Never." I shook my head. "You say that now, but where was this love when you were sneaking behind my back? When you were planning a life with her while living one with me? When I needed you most?" He dropped to his knees in front of me. "Please, let me make it right. I will do anything. Just let me be a father to our boys. Let me at least try to be the man I should have been." The boys watched from the hallway silent. Yuri, now older than his years, held Vova's hand protectively. I could see the conflict in their eyes, hope mixed with doubt. I knew my next words would shape their future as much as mine. "You can be their father," I said slowly. "They deserve that. But me? I can't be your wife anymore. That chapter is closed." Leonid's shoulders sank. He nodded, wiping tears from his face. "I understand." He stood and turned toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back once more. "Thank you for giving me this chance, even if it's not the one I hoped for." After he left, a strange calm settled over the apartment. I expected to feel broken, defeated. But instead, I felt peace. For the first time in months, I wasn't clinging to the past or trying to fix the unfixable. Later that week, I returned to work, my first real step into a new life. It wasn't easy. Colleagues whispered behind my back. Neighbors stared a little too long. But I held my head high. I had survived the collapse of my marriage, the loss of a child, betrayal from my closest friend, and I was still standing. One afternoon, Yuri came home with a crumpled piece of paper from school. It was an essay. He had titled it, "The Strongest Person I Know." It was about me. I read every word through blurry eyes. He had seen everything, every breakdown, every tear, every moment I thought I had failed. But to him, I was a hero. That night, as we sat around the kitchen table, just me and my boys, I finally smiled for real. Not a forced smile for the world, but a genuine one. We had our scars, but we also had each other. And that was more than enough.